put on your seatbelt. You're in for a bumpy ride. If you think about AI, it is a race. It's a race that we all must win. So when Terry and Gina asked me to take a stab at that, and they've got a very high level of expertise, what could I bring to you that they haven't already brought to you? And I thought, maybe we back up a little bit and then take a running start at it. So we talked about what are the top AI tools. And I'm going to tell you the top AI tools are very simple. Listen carefully. The ones that work for you. Forget about everything else. If you don't understand it, if you can't use it, if you're frustrated with it, it's not going to work for you. And that's why we're all confused. We all walk around going, well, I don't know about Baird. I don't know about Murph. I don't know about this. Don't worry about it. Set your end result first and then come up with the tool that will help you reach the end result. Don't go the other way. So let me ask you a couple of questions. What if you could spend less time doubting about AI and concerned about AI and used it for problem solving, strategy, performance, and more time creating? What if you could design an online course? What if you could come up with a speech? What if you could come up with slides? What if you could do it faster, smarter, and easier than the way you used to do it? Let me ask you again. Could you attract new customers, new employees in terms of retaining them, sponsorships, if you're looking for that? The answer is yes. AI can make that happen because AI is so powerful. It will help you do this. And you want to write this down because it's a Jim soundbite. According to Jim, you want to make your offer so powerful, it's more painful to walk away than to purchase. Think about that. If you have not come up with a compelling differentiation, if you've not addressed the what's in it for me, it all defaults to price. If, on the other hand, you're not the best at what you do, but the only one that does what you do, you can charge whatever you want. It's that simple. We're in an industry of commoditization, and you have to break through. And when you think it doesn't work, I'll ask you a very simple question. Why would any of us spend $1,500 for a phone when we always thought the phone was simply to be calling people? Because the phone morphed into something more. So now you say, well, I'm going to get a smartphone. Well, whose smartphone do we get? On one side of the street is everyone who's non-Apple. And on the other side of the street is Apple. Because Apple has built a culture. Apple still has live customer service. Apple has stopped being innovative, and they wait for everybody else to clear the path, and then they just steal it and make it better. So when you think you're being overwhelmed, if you think that technology is difficult today, I'm here to tell you it's going to be more difficult tomorrow. So if you think of it as the train pulling into the station, you only have two choices. You either get on the train, find a seat, and get comfortable for the ride, or you watch it pull out of the station only to find out that you're the only one left there and you're never going to catch up. When you think about everything that's out there with complexity of the tools, when you think about everything that's being talked about, I said to myself, what am I going to call myself? How am I going to buy into this expertise? And I realized you can't be an expert in AI. You can't be an expert in anything where the rules are changing all the time. And so the best that you could do is say, I'm more familiar with somebody else, or I have figured out how to leverage it better than somebody else. And in thinking about that, I wrestled with it. And I came back and I said, concierge. A concierge is somebody you go to for advice and resources. And often that changes because he or she finds out that a particular vendor didn't do a good job, and they're constantly trying to update the information for their customers. And then I used a word that resonated. I help demystify and give guidance. And I've been building this mantra for most of my time, saying, I take complicated and make it simple. I try to talk to the 7-year-old, who today is probably smarter than most of us, and watch their reaction, because it's much like a Swiss Army knife. So here's a perfect example. I went in and said, let's create a Swiss Army knife, and I want all the logos of these companies, and it couldn't do it to save its life. It couldn't spell it. It couldn't grab the emails. It couldn't get the images, etc. So I said, okay, let's focus on the knife. I'll take everything off the blades, and then I'll go one by one by one by one and create the logos, the images, the copy, etc. Now that's sort of old school, but yet I've come to recognize the limitations when you start talking about creating an image. So I'm just here to do two things for you. Help you use tools to make your business better and maybe your life better, and to give you some ideas and tips that you may not have thought of before. I can't possibly cover everything. I can't go into depth in everything, but we will have a Q&A portion afterwards. So write down your questions. And if you've got something, we'll talk about it, but just let me do the presentation before we start diving into that. So very quickly, I did a presentation for someone called The Evolution of AI, and I thought I would share it with you. It started in 2015 with Elon Musk and the names that you've heard of before. But here's the important part. Their vision was to help humanity unrestrained by monetary interests. I'm sorry. Is that a business model? No, because you look at the people that are there, they don't need the money. So they can do this good for humanity because their paycheck and their rent and their kids' education wasn't dependent on it. And they came up with a not-for-profit. And so I was kind of playing with that. And I said, maybe we'll just change the way I write the word profit to say not pro-philosophy, because the philosophy has changed. They started to open it up. Initially, it was deep research. But that research was based on data points from 2022 and older. That was Chat 3. So they started with about 1.5 billion data points. Now, that sounds like a lot until you're thinking, what's a data point? And we probably should just call it X's and O's to simplify it. And there's a lot of X's and O's and everything that's out there in the computer world. So is 1.5 billion that many? Yeah, I don't know. So they wanted to balance the research, and then all of the critics came in and said, well, what about the Terminator? What about taking over the world? What about this? What about that? And so they went back and they rethought about it. And in 2020, it went to 175 billion data points. And then they started to see the limitation and the servers that they needed. And they started piling tons of money into this. And so in 2022, ChatGPT was released to the public. And everybody went, what is it? How do we use it? Why do I care? Didn't you see the movies, Her, The Terminator, and all the other sci-fis where computers take over the world? I don't want to do that. And because ChatGPT has consistently had no instruction manual, you're on your own. The only way to learn how to use ChatGPT is to listen to Terry and Gina and the 12-year-olds and the 14-year-olds that are on TikTok and YouTube that do it so much better because they understand it. And then we find out that Microsoft invested $10 billion. Well, I did a little homework there. Microsoft basically said, hey, let's support OpenAI while we're building our own competitive model. And we'll marry up the best of both worlds. And hopefully one day, Microsoft will be the go-to. And the good news, bad news was that Microsoft was in ChatGPT when they brought up 4. And the Microsoft attorneys went ballistic. You got people doing bad stuff. You got people using it for scams. You got this. And so Microsoft had to pull out. And they didn't continue to put in all of the 10 billion that they had promised, but they started to support some of their own things because the government started to look at it, and really the governments overseas, not necessarily the United States, because we have trouble even maintaining our own lifestyle and borders and set of rules. But in Europe, as an example, Italy came out and said, you cannot use AI unless you're 18 years old. How are you going to police? How are you going to police it? How are you going to prove it? So everybody was trying to come up with some way to rein it in, and all it really did is it was like having a rubber band that you're pulling, 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 and when it snaps, it hurts. And that's kind of what happened. So they needed to balance everything, and they needed to ensure their growth. And their growth made it applicable and open to everybody that could write code. There are now 250,000 AI tools out there, and I don't believe that number is accurate. I think it's low. When I first started, I was working with artificial intelligence before ChatGPT, etc., and there was about 500 tools that were being used. Now it's 250,000, and if you try to use a research tool like Perplexity, they'll tell you they don't even know because they're coming up so fast. So here's a wheel that breaks it down into 6 categories: productivity, video, marketing, chatbot design, and writing. Because I think for us as speakers, consultants, and coaches, that kind of sums up our need. So I looked at it and I said, okay, let me go through each category. So the first one I said was Perplexity. You've all heard about Perplexity, phenomenal research tool. When you go into Perplexity, make sure you click the little button that says open it up to the other search engines so you get a more robust type of search. Then I said, well, what am I going to do for my video? I played with all kinds of stuff and fell in love with Pictory, probably because of the simplicity initially. But they partnered up with 11 Labs for the voice and with Getty Images for the images. And for the small subscription price of it, you're not paying 11 Labs and you're not paying Getty Images. So now you got a real value proposition. And now we get into the quagmire. The quagmire is, how do you manage your social media? Well, I marked this because I kept coming back and trying this and trying that and going back and forth. And I just never got anything that I liked, but I'm going to tell you what I have settled on. Is it the right one? I don't know. So far, it's doing the job. So far, I'm not getting any complaints from social media. My guess is social media is trying to figure out how many people are using other tools, and they're going to come back and say, you can't do that, you can't do that. But so far, I've escaped that. ChatGPT has become the go-to. It got 1 million users in 5 days. It has 300 million users, and about 150, 180 of them are active. 150, 80 million are active at any one time. So when you see it slow down, think about how many people are online at one time trying to access it. And then, of course, they complicate it a little bit more because they put Dolly in with ChatGPT because they're both OpenAI. And then lastly, I tell everybody, no matter what you're doing, use Grammarly. Grammarly is great for writing. It's great for syntax. It's great for tone. It's great for focus. I do not do anything that doesn't go through Grammarly. So when you're in ChatGPT, you copy it and you put it in Word. You'll see all of the funky formatting, and it's annoying. So then you say, get rid of formatting, and it's a real mess. Instead, go from ChatGPT to Grammarly, even if you do nothing else. It removes all the formats. Let's assume you just put it into Grammarly for that alone, grab it, then put it into your Word document or whatever you're using, and it's easy to format, it's easy to grab. So for me, these are my go-to tools until I decided I would look again and see what was going on. So here we are, 6 months later. All of the ones on the right have started to replace all the ones on the left. So just when I thought it was safe to go in the water. Look what happened. My point to you is you cannot possibly want to spend as much time as I spend on this. I'm thinking of monetizing my time by starting a 12-step program for people like me that just won't quit. But out of that, I have fun. I find things that I can enjoy, and I find things that frustrate me. So here's one that you may find very interesting. Forbes went to a bunch of CEOs and said, how do you use AI? Here was their first mistake. Most of the CEOs have no idea how their department or their company is using it. But that's who they asked. And they said customer service. And I think we would all agree. If AI is really being used for customer service, we got a serious problem here. Because customer service, in my mind, has become polarized. It's either something like Apple, which is live, or something like Microsoft, which is, we'll get back to you, we put you on hold, let us call you back, blah, blah, blah. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Where Apple may take you a little while to get into the queue, but they will spend the time with you to make it right. And then I won't go through all of these, but you kind of get the general gist of how CEOs think it's being used. And I'm about to dispel that for our group here today. Second soundbite. I don't care what you want to do. There's now an app. Period. End of conversation. I don't think you can come up with something other than who's going to walk my dog or who's going to wash my dishes. But in the business, creation, management, operations, social media, customer service, website building, there's an app for that. Period. So I said, hey, let's come up with a cartoon. So this is my cartoon of the king fighting a war. And at the back is a guy from the Acme Machine Gun Company. But he's too busy fighting a war. I'm going to ask you the same thing. Are you using old weapons to fight today's battles? Because you could have the machine gun. But more importantly, behind the machine gun salesman is the future. And the future is now. So don't tell me how busy you are. Don't tell me how difficult it is. Don't tell me all the reasons you can't or won't use AI. And I will tell you, that's a decision that you can make, but your competition is using it, and they're going to put you out of business. You cannot function in today's marketplace without being competitive. And to be competitive, you got to start harnessing this power. Now, here's where it's going to be, buckle your seatbelts, you're in for a bumpy ride. I cannot possibly talk about 200 tools, but I thought just to kind of establish credibility and give you an idea of how much time I'm spending, I would create a visual representation. So, number 1 through 5. Notice I've grabbed a logo, I've got the link to it, and a short description. There's 10 through 15, 20 through 25, and so forth, 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 and so forth. Am I making my point? And so forth. Stop. How do I run my social media? So I found something called marking. It takes me 5 minutes to create 30 days of content using marking. Here's what happens. You go in, you set up your profile, you tell Marky what you want to talk about, you link your social profiles, you either use their generated images or you put up your own images, and you just go through and let it start to create. So in my case, I have linked 6 social media platforms. I post twice a day to all of them. I have said in the posting, vary it by 30 minutes all the time so it doesn't set up a pattern that alerts me to the social media algorithms that are trying to police it. I vary the background, I vary the content, and so far, since I started, I'm getting an average of 75 new followers a day, average, on each of the platforms. Why? Because somebody goes, woo, this guy's posting. It's interesting. He's not trying to sell me anything. He's giving me information. I'll go ahead and add him. That's how you start to build your list. That's how you start to build your credibility. Now, the second thing is I heard everybody starting to talk about Perplexity. We know that Perplexity is a great research tool. But let me change your mind a little. This is a tool that takes all of those, Claude, GP, Gemini, Perplexity, Minstrel, and puts them in a bundle for 13 bucks. Now, I think now they moved it to 19 bucks. So what? It's still cheaper than one of them. And when you use it, it runs them simultaneously. So in other words, here's the Perplexity answer. Here's the Claude answer. Here's the chat answer. And now you can cut, paste, get educated, and become an expert overnight. Try it. There's a free version, like everything. And I recommend, no matter what program you're looking at, start with free, play with it, see if you like it, see if you're going to be able to utilize it or not. But this will put your Perplexity on steroids. Okay, let's talk about creativity. Whoa, big topic. So we start with, you started with Midjourney and Runway and I can never pronounce, Synthesis, Leonardo. I mean, those are the big early runners, but it has ramped up big time, huge, big time. It's not stopping because there's huge demand for it. It's necessary demand for it. Again, where do you stop? Okay, Canva. We all like Canva. Canva's good for this? Not necessarily as good as something else. So my third rule is there is no one size fits all. You got to put together a toolbox that you like, that you can use, that works for you. And it keeps going. If you're looking for great images, try Crayon. If you're looking for some amazing things that it will do, look at Photar. Look at Super Machine. Look at these. You probably looked at these and go, Jim, I never heard of these. I never saw any of these. That's because they don't promote. They don't send out emails. You have to be like Jim and Terry and Gina, where we're just going on and say, show me the new tools. Here's one you may have never seen before because it's buried behind Midjourney. Stability under one creative tool has all of these things. Now, what does that mean? See and search and replace. I can click on that image and say, I want that to become a frog, and it changes. Remove background, we all know about. When you get into things like outpaint and upscale, here's a picture of a dog, but I wanted the dog to be more in the foreground, it'll do it. Outpaint says, I'm going to put in a new background, but I like some of what's here. So you don't want a normal background remover. You want to be able to like take an eraser and erase part of it and then upload the new one. All under one tool. Here's a presentation maker. For me, it's a game changer. Canva makes slides. Lots of people make slides. I talked about SlideGo to make slides. Here's one you may have never seen before. Take a PDF, upload it, and it'll create a slide deck all by itself. Now, Jim, how are you doing that? I'll tell you how I do that. I'll do my research on Perplexity. I'll then put it into chat. I'll use my voice to create my own tones. I will take that and put it into Grammarly to clean it up to make sure I got it right. Then I'll put it into Word and make a PDF. Now, in all fair disclosure, I sometimes will take 4 or 5 things off the internet that other people have written. I'll do the same thing and then merge everything together, clean it up, put it into Grammarly, and then check for plagiarism. Because I don't want to steal somebody else's ideas. But let's face it, if somebody's got a good idea, there's not a reason to not use it as long as you're not claiming it as your own. Now, with Perplexity, you can have citations and references if you're actually going to use that as a specific site. But I don't. I put it back into my own voice. So I would tell you, try Dectopus because it's $14.95 for the month. It will change your whole perception of creating a slide deck. And the other one we talked about last week was SlidesGo, which is very, very inexpensive. It's owned by FreePix. I won't go into it because we did it last week. But again, a game changer, and its talent is you type in what you want to talk about, and AI will then generate everything. Where Dectopus is asking you, do you have something as a starting point, and we'll go from there. It will do the AI, but it doesn't do the AI as well as the SlideGo, and the SlideGo won't even accept the PDF. Back to my same comment, one size does not fit all. So as you look through that, I recognize you got a lot on your plate. It's like, I'm hungry, I need to go shopping. So when you go shopping, you go to the grocery store. AI tools are like the grocery store. The grocery store has 30,000 items in the average grocery store. And everybody can access the same items. And you go to the grocery store, and you typically go, oh, bananas are on sale. Well, I didn't come for bananas, but they're only 19 cents, so I guess I'll buy some bananas. That's the problem with all the AI tools. Here's an introduction at $29. Here's an introduction at $49. Here's an, and you start to load up on all these tools, and you never master any of them. So the first decision you have to decide is, when I go to the grocery store and I go to tools, am I looking for basic or am I looking for gourmet? I can tell you with Gina and Terry and I go, we're more in the gourmet because we've already felt comfortable with the basics. Now we're trying to create some additional things on the plate, some things that it isn't doing otherwise. But I go back to the concept of Costco. Two things you know for sure at Costco, and that's really the only two things you know. They have a $1.50 hot dog and a $4.99 chicken. So you go at lunchtime to get the hot dog and to get a chicken for dinner. But you're at Costco's. And somehow you fill your shopping cart with a couple $100 worth of stuff. Don't do that with AI tools. Because even though it looks like it's a great bargain and you take it home, it's like overbuying at Costco's. You can't use it and it's wasted. So one of the things that I've been doing is I've been using AI tools to create very focused workbooks, very focused subject matter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 of those. See those? Average 40 pages. Did them all over the 4th of July weekend. Start to finish, created, published, graphics, etc. All these images you see, all AI generated. You could have never written one in a weekend, more or less 10. Now, lastly, I want to remind everybody that the bad guys are using the tools the same as the good guys. And as a result, false profiles are being created, false images are being created, and they're using them to extract money. And during COVID, I started realizing how big a problem this was. And I started tracking it. And so I made a website. And I said, I'm going to do a bunch of things on the website as I do my homework. And then I started to realize that what was happening to teens was different than what's happening to college students, which was different than what's happening to mature people, that was happening to more mature people. And so I created a romance scam expert website. And as a result, through my diligence, this is a partial showing of the people that I've had arrested using AI tools. All of these are letters from the U.S. Department of Justice telling me the status of these people that have been scamming others. So, do you have the tools? Do you have the time? Do you have the inclination? I thought we'd have a little bit of fun and show you a tool called Puppetry. So Puppetry says upload an image and then upload a voice and we'll animate it. So I uploaded the image and I said, I'm not going to upload my voice. I'm just going to let it upload a voice.
Harnessing the power of AI for your business is no longer an option. You won't lose business to AI, but you will lose business to someone that is using AI.
Now, my initial response is, I look ugly. But I didn't edit it. I just let it do what it was doing. So if you're looking to take an object or take a graph or take a cartoon and animate it, I'd suggest you look at puppetry. And if you're trying to build your business and you're trying to decide whether I should use LinkedIn Navigator or Apollo, I'd suggest you look at Apollo. Apollo scrubs the internet for contacts, and it is constantly updating it so that you get intel that you cannot get from Navigator. And it's totally customizable. Apollo.ai. And everything that I say, everything that Terry says, everything that Gina says has behind it trust but verify, because the information is coming off the internet. And we all know that sometimes the information on the internet is not always factual. So I want to give you a gift. Like many people, I want you to have a takeaway. So I've got a deck for you of 50 tools. But if I just give it to you, I don't know who got it. I don't know if there's any opportunity to work with somebody. And as speakers and consultants, we've been exposed to something called Talkadot. And within Talkadot, you can do a giveaway. So here's my slide. Please use your QR code. Answer the 5 questions. It will take you 1 minute. And as a thank you, you're going to get those 50 AI tools that we just talked about. Now, you in the audience are more than willing to do that because you're getting something back for your time. And what you as a Talkadot customer are getting is feedback in real time. Since I've used it, I have hundreds, literally hundreds of responses at 100% satisfaction. I don't know anybody that ever got 100% from an audience. And especially if you said, fill out this survey or fill out this piece of paper, etc. The real advantage of Talkadot is it's real time while they've seen you, heard you, felt you, experienced you. And it's a simple 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're done. Thank you. Here's your stuff and move on. And you get their contact information. So as we close up, I want you to watch this graph. So ladies and gentlemen, when you use AI, shift happens. And if you're not going to use it